To me, my office space is more than just a room where I work. It's a reflection of everything I love. It's a place that fosters creativity, encourages me to be more productive, and more than anything, it inspires me to do my best work. And while the space never feels truly complete, the additions I've made over the last few months have made it feel more whole than ever, and I'm really happy with the space it's turned into. Let's start with the desk setup itself, and while it might feel quite familiar to some of you, there's actually been quite a few changes here too. It's still the same desk setup though. This is made from parts from IKEA, and it's a Carby kitchen countertop at 186 centimeters, and that's sitting on top of an Alex drawer unit and a trestle on the other side. And there's no screws or anything holding this together, it's just the weight of the countertop holding everything down because it really is quite heavy. And over the years I've had it for about 5 years now. There's been no bowing or anything like that. It's a relatively solid top and it's held up really well. Sitting on top of the desk is the Grove Made monitor shelf, and I really love this product. I've been using it for about 3 years, and this is actually the updated version which has only recently come out, and I really like it. Effectively what it does is just sits on top of your desk, but it gives it some shape, and it also has a shelf within it so you can hold things on there like books and chargers and all those sorts of things, and it's really good for holding up a monitor. I also use their laptop holder for my MacBook Pro, which I really like too. But moving on from there, we've got my computers. For my computers, my main computer is my M1 Max Mac Studio. I've had this for about a year now. It's been such a fantastic computer for all types of creative workflows, and especially for me, who's someone who edits a lot of video, it's an absolute beast for that, and I really love it. Sitting just off to the right of the Mac Studio is my custom PC, which is a small form factor PC, and I really like it, but it has somewhat retired since picking up the Mac Studio. I do have a plan for it this year. I want to get a new graphics card in there and update some other things, and especially sort out the cooling, so stick around if you'd like to see a video on that. But for now, that's just sitting there until I get round to it. Moving to my monitor now, and this is a question I get all the time on Instagram and even on this channel. This is a Dell U2720Q, which is a 4K 60Hz monitor, which is just really decent for the money. I actually tried to replace it with the Apple Studio display recently, but I found it just kind of wasn't as versatile as this Dell one, so I ended up returning that and coming back to the Dell. And it's been a really fantastic monitor. It doesn't get as bright as I'd like it to, but it does have 3 input sources, and I really love that. So my custom PC's hooked up to it through DisplayPort, my Mac Studio's hooked up to it through USB-C, and my Nintendo Switch, which is on the other side of the desk, also hooks in through HDMI, and that's something which the Apple Studio display just couldn't compete with. I don't have the monitor on its original stand. I have it on a monitor arm, which is just one from Amazon, which was relatively cheap, called Von House, and it's done the job well. But more interestingly, and the main part of this setup, which I've actually made permanent now, is my iPad. I'm using an iPad VESA mount holder rather than a stand this time round. This is from ChargeM Pro, and I've used their iPad holders in the past, which I'm sure you've seen on this channel a few times before, but this gives a floating effect and I really love it. To get it up and running, all I did was to buy another Von House monitor arm, disassemble that a little bit and attach the VESA mount to it, and then that lets the iPad have this wonderful floating effect. And for me, having an iPad next to my monitor and controlling it with universal control across the Apple ecosystem is just a match made in heaven. I really love it, and I've talked about it a huge amount, so I won't go on about it now, but it just lets me control my iPad with my keyboard and mouse that I'm using for my Mac. And it's fantastic if I've got a to-do list up on there, or if I'm referencing notes I made earlier on there, or if I just want things like lo-fi playing on there, or just for anything else. It's like having a second monitor that's completely different, but also really smart, and I can use it in other ways and use iPad apps right at my fingertips. I know it won't be for everybody, but for me, it's just great. I do have a complete video on this monitor and how I have it set up with my iPad, so I'll link that below if you want to see more. And for the wallpapers, I'm using my new Bokeh wallpaper set, which look absolutely stunning on mobile and on laptop and on iPad and anything, so I'll link those below if you want to check them out. For a mouse and keyboard, I'm using the NuFi Halo 65, which is a really wonderful keyboard. I've actually got a bit of a joke of the amount of keyboards I've got. Some are from NuFi and some are from other companies, which I really like too. But this Halo 65 is the one I always come back to. I really like the compact size. It's got Gatron Brown switches. It's all hot swappable. And it's got different Bluetooth profiles as well, so I can switch between my PC and my Mac or my MacBook or anything else I have attached onto there really easily. And the one thing I do really have to point out is this Squirtle keycap I picked up. This was a silly amount of money and it replaces my escape key, but I just absolutely love it. It really fits the keyboard nicely, and the detail on the little squirtle in there is just fantastic. For a mouse, I'm still using the Logitech MX Master 3 in this grey colourway. Love this mouse. If you're a creator, you'll know some of the MX series is just really powerful and really useful. My favourite thing about it is the scrolly wheel by the thumb, which lets me kind of scrub timelines really quickly in Final Cut Pro. It just completely speeds up what I do, so I love that. Despite really enjoying the MX Master series, I did also try one of the Logitech Lift series, which is the vertical mouse. And while I really liked it, it ended up hurting my wrist quite badly. So I just ended up going back to the MX Master, which is a shame because I think they look amazing. And both of these are sitting on a Grove-made desk mat. Now the reason I really love this one is because it's so small. All the desk mats I've had in the past are either too long or too big, and the desk isn't that wide, so getting one this small and this high quality from Grove-made is really nice. So those three combined together kind of make up my keyboard and mouse situation, and I don't see it changing at any point soon. Moving back to the desk shelf now, I have a couple books on there which I reference quite often for design and productivity help. I've got a valet tray from Ugmonk, which is this beautiful wooden tray which holds my iPhone case and a knife for opening boxes and things like that. And I also have my backup storage. This is just a 5TB drive from Lacey. But my main new thing recently is this Orbit Key Nest. This is the Marie Kondo edition, which is a lighter version of the black ones they had before. And this is a really neat little gadget to keep at your desk. For me, it holds my charger and some wires and some more external storage and some memory cards and just other little doodads that would normally stay around in a drawer which I need constant access to. The thing I really like about this is the lid acts as a wireless charger. So if my phone needs it, I can just slide it out and pop my phone on top of there. And then when I don't need it, I can just slide it back under the shelf. And it looks really nice too. I also have my iPad Air sitting there in the case too, which I'll take with me if I'm heading to a coffee shop or somewhere else to work for the day. Another thing I really like about this desk shelf is I can push my entire keyboard and mouse and mat underneath it when I'm doing something else, like filming this video. I would usually have to take that off the shelf and put it somewhere else, but now I can slide it all under and it fits under there really nicely. For audio, I'm using the Ruark Audio MR1 Mark IIs, which are a pair of speakers which I really like. The design is really nice. It's kind of that old sort of bookshelf looking thing. They're wired into the monitor, so it doesn't matter what's plugged in, they'll always play whatever's being shown on the monitor, which is really useful. And the final thing on my desk, which is relatively new, is the 8-bit Do Ultimate controller. I mainly use this for playing Switch, but it also works with Mac and PC as well, so I can connect that and use it straight away. In terms of cable management, I'm using some white trunking from Amazon. It's nothing special, but it's self-adhesive, so I stick it to the back of the desk and I run all the wires through there. And the good thing about this is I can pull out a wire wherever I want to on that trunking system, and it plugs into whatever I need to really nicely. It's not massively technical, and a lot of you seem to be really interested in how I do it, but I really do keep it that simple. Next to the desk, I have my first of 2 lockers. This one holds a lot of my kind of external filming gear, so sliders and holders and clamps and lights and batteries and all things like that all sit in there nice and neatly. And it means I can just kind of hide them away when I don't need them. Sitting on top of that is my laptop, which I keep in the Grove-made stand, which I really like. I use my laptop when I leave this office. I don't ever use it within the office, but if I'm going out somewhere to a friend's to work, or if I'm working on bigger projects when I'm going away, then I'll take that. Moving on from the desk setup now, I have some shelving, and the main purpose of this shelving is to house all of my camera equipment so I can grab it straight away. As someone who makes content on a daily basis, having a camera in arm's reach is really important to me. On the shelf on top of that, I have a bunch of books which I really like. Some of these are just design books, some of them productivity and kind of business help books, but a lot of them are just nice ones to look at, and I use them within videos a huge amount for kind of textures or for colours, which I find really useful. And on the bottom shelf is where I have my Nintendo Switch, which is sitting in a Gully Kit dock, which I've talked about before, but it's just a nicer way of showing off the Switch. And I also have some other decoration too. Next up is one of the bigger changes I've made to the office since I last did this tour. Gone has the sofa that I used to have, and I've now replaced that with a second desk which I use for filming. This is exactly the same kitchen top that I'm using for my desk setup, so it matches everything. But this time I put it on wheels, so I can move it around the office if I need to make a new set, which you might have seen me do, or if I need more access to film certain things. This has been so useful and a bit of a game changer for me, because I was dismantling my main desk all the time so I could film on it. and then I'd have to rebuild afterwards. But one of my favourite additions as well is I use a lot of coloured card when I'm taking photos or filming video, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen, and I used to have no decent storage solution for that. I would put them behind something or, stash them on the floor until I needed them, but I ended up putting small eyelets at the top of every single piece of card I had, and they're now hanging on the wall via a nail. I did have a nicer idea in my mind of how it might look, but it actually works really, really well, and it also means that the card gets less beat up, less damaged, because I can just grab the one I need and hang them back up when I need to, and they also add a nice pop of colour to the room. Okay, let's move on to the second biggest change, and this is my new coffee station. Beforehand, this was just an inbuilt wardrobe to the room, but I wasn't using it properly and it was just such a mess in there, and I had all these different ideas of what I could do for it, but I ended up buying a big locker from Schlum so I could keep the storage element to it, and I built this kind of coffee station on top of it. Now initially I got overexcited about this and bought the Barista Pro Max from Breville, which is like a really huge coffee machine, but it was just too big and it ended up leaking anyway, so I had to send it back. So I finally decided on this relatively small one from DeLonghi. It's the DeLonghi Dedica, and it makes a decent enough coffee for me. Generally speaking, I'm not overly picky with coffee, as you can probably tell from the one I'm making now. I'll drink pretty much anything, but having a coffee machine in here has been a really nice addition. Not only does it smell really good, but it means if someone comes over, I can offer them a nice coffee, and sometimes it's nice to make a coffee just to have a break and to take my mind off stuff. But that's the overall coffee station, and I'm really, really happy with it. Another new thing is getting all of my various backpacks on the wall. This is something I wanted to do for a long time because they were just sitting in random places, but actually having them hung up on the walls and showing them off is a really nice addition to the office. They're a very different shape and texture, and not only that, but actually having quick access to them has been really useful. Those backpacks are hanging on these wooden pegs which I picked up from Amazon, which are really, really nice, and they kind of complement the look of the space too, and they were easy to put up, which is ideal. And of course, I still have my beloved pegboards from IKEA. You've probably seen these before and seen them in lots of other people's setups, but they really are fantastic and they're really worth getting if you want some kind of smart storage, or if you want somewhere like me just to hang art. A lot of you have asked where I get all of my artwork from. Some of it comes from Kuroko Studio, which is my own brand. Some of it comes from Pyhem Studio, which is another artist I really like. Some of it's from Spooky Zuri, which I really like too, but I will try my best to find all of the artists I've used and link them below, because they really do make up a huge vibe of what this office is. I also use my pegboards though in a more practical sense. One of them is my camera charging station, so I've got a little charger on the side which connects to all my camera batteries, which means I can just plonk them in when they're run out of charge. I can just plug that into the wall and that would charge all of my camera batteries back up at once, which is really nice. And sometimes I use them for equipment too. A lot of the times I'll hang my microphones on there, or I'll hang wires on there that I'm using constantly, so I don't have to go into a drawer and fish them out. I can just grab them from the pegboard and it works really well. There is one thing I wanted to discuss before I go, because I get a lot of questions about it in general, is kind of how do you design your workspace, or how do you make it look so unique? And honestly, it's the little details that do that. So for me, it's kind of the Studio Ghibli books and prints, and it's the little Pokemon statues, and it's the little Link amiibo which you see dotted around, and the slight hints of pastel colorways everywhere which I inject into this space. And that's what's making it feel kind of really unique. And I really think you should do the same for your own workspace. If you're passionate about a character, or if you really like a certain design, then get that stuff into your space. My only advice is to not overdo it. Sometimes I see gamer setups and they're so full on, it's just, it's kind of void of personality because it's just so much. But if you have small nods to it all over your space, it actually adds a really nice kind of injection of personality, and people really connect with that. So that pretty much wraps up everything new in my office and how I've been using it over the past 6 months or so. I will try my absolute best to link everything I possibly can below so you can check it out. And if you've got any questions or suggestions or thoughts about the office space, then do let me know. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And of course, I will see you all in the next one.